Hi guys, David Texas here. What you're looking at is a nice, really nice little Fender Japanese Stratocaster. Back when they made these, excellently. I mean, these are great little guitars. If you ever get your hands on one, get it. Now, it's also got the very special tail piece here. See this? Not ordinary by a long shot. It's one of the first type of rollers I came up with, okay? And we're looking at some very nice pickups on this guitar, so I played it. Nice rosewood. The frets are in so-so condition. They need to be crowned on the cowboy chords through the 12th fret. That can take place later. There's not a rush on that kind of thing. I never try to rush people to get this done. But what I'm going to do today is go through here and show you some of the things we use to do these setups with that maybe in the past I've edited them out, you didn't see them, okay? First thing I do, I go through and I check the relief on this guitar, see what kind of relief it's got, if it's got any at all, right? And I also want to know exactly what the radius is of this neck, okay? Because there are all different types of radius on these guitars from Japan, all right? Depending on what year it came out. The little radiusing tool is one thing I use. Next thing I use, the little action gauge. Gives me all kinds of different, ways of measuring the action on this guitar. And I'll be using, of course, as always, the linseed oil to do the fret work with, the fretboard. I'll do a polish up to clean it up before I really get into it, get my hands off it, get all the dirty junk off it once I take the strings off. And on the last part, I'll be using this tool here to gauge the pickup height, which are way too high right now from what I'm seeing. They're almost touching. So that's got to be adjusted right. So first things first, get these strings off of it. Alright, just going to put a new set on there. Get all the unnecessary stuff out of the way that I'll be using immediately. Kind of clear the field up. Alright. Now, before I cut these strings off, I'm going to take a measurement on this neck and see what kind of action he's got already on this guitar. Bear with me guys while I put this up so I can see it with my eyes. Whoa, we're at 2/64 on the low E and 3/64 on the high E, so we're basically out of whack here on several of the strings, so I have to adjust those. But we already know what it's set up to do, and we also know what fret buzz is on. So we've got to adjust that to the proper height on the first 3 wound strings, get those back to 4/64. As well as the next thing we're going to do is check that neck action and see what kind of relief we got on it, if there's any at all. Alright, again, hold on there guys while I whip this up, I can look at it. Let's see. And it's flat as a flitter. No relief whatsoever. Okay, this could be another reason why the fret buzz is on him, but the main reason is got the action set up too low on it. Okay, so we got the springs back on correctly. You never point them in a teepee, guys. You want 3 springs on there, you kick them straight across. One the other. And you don't have these 2 on the outside coming in. That's just someone's idea of doing something they shouldn't do, basically. Just don't do that, okay? Now, oddly enough, this is a different type of bridge that Japan had. They work kind of well. They do have a nice roller on them. Okay. Alright, so let's get these old strings off here. The nut on this guitar is about worn out. That's something you does need to take a look at soon. Because that's going to help the fret buzz issue. And either you can buy his own, put it on there himself, or you buy one from me or have a bone one cut, whatever he wants done. As always, we're going to do the neck next. They come from years of playing this guitar. It's just not going to happen. And no piece of sandpaper is going to do a very good job of it either. Alright, it'll polish the frets really nicely. As far as removing that, I've seen those sticks they sell. I've got one, somebody sent one to me to test, and they don't work worth a flip, okay? Okay, while I was waiting for the linseed oil to sit up in the neck, and it did suck up a lot of it, guys. Okay, come out clean. I went ahead and tightened up the screws on the tuning knobs. They weren't too loose. Quick little turn. And that's coming out really nice looking. A little bit on the dirty side, but most of it's coming up real nicely. Okay, so now's the time to get in there and start doing these frets. Okie dokie. So I'll switch this thing around so you can see me doing this for a few of these. And we'll use the same material as before. A little brace right there, a little bracket to protect the wood that is finished cleaning up. And we're going to take our hand and just do this back and forth. And what we're doing is getting that gray material off the fret itself, polishing it up. Now you may not be able to see this, I said this a million times on camera, but that does do a lot of nice work to that fret. It gets it shiny again, but the main thing is it takes out those micro scratches on it and makes it much more easy to play. And it doesn't take that much to do it. You know, just 8, 9, 10 swipes of this eraser. Now, this is a 220, and it's done. Okay? Okay, those are all done. Kind of odd about this guitar, on the sides of the frets, where my eraser won't reach that going onto the wood, kind of dull looking. That's odd. I should have got on them, but the tops are now nice and shiny and smooth again. Okay, so next thing to do, guys, is flip this thing over, turn the camera around, and put them strings on, so hang in there. Okay, time to string this puppy up. And let's ram the first 3 strings on it. Get those started. Main thing is making sure you go through the right hole on this thing. You don't want to go in that long hole and get crimped in there like that G string was done. That's a nightmare. Try to get back out again. There's not a lot of thrill to try to get these things to go through these keys like it is. There it goes. Alright. Alright, so there we go, guys. They're all strung up. They're all on their rollers. Let's clip this one to finish that off, and we'll tune it up here in a minute. And then work on the intonation and on the pickup pipe. Hang in there. Okay, well today we're working on this 1969 Fender Stratocaster, and we're putting new pots on it and a new tusk nut. Alright, so back to it now. When I was testing these pots were pretty much shot. There's not a lot we could do about those. Yeah, you try to keep everything original as you can, but in this case, you know, you want it to sound good too. You want it to sound at least, you know, playable. And also the 5-way switch on it needs to be touched up. The contacts need to be worked on so that they work properly. I'm not going to replace that, since it just needs to be cleaned up and fixed up a bit. As you can see, it's pretty much hodgepodge in here. Now we'll be replacing this cap with a orange drop there's plenty of room for us, so no problem there. But you know, you're looking at you know, you're looking at 3 old beat up potentiometers that are wired just so, okay? And the wiring on is fine, there's no problem with that. The grounding is pretty much typical Japanese grounding, this open wire one to the other, which I will put the heat shrink on there to keep those from touching anything. And when you get down to it, they got some cross wiring here between the pots, not only just the ground, but the contacts, the probes, that need to be addressed as well. Okie dokie. And these are 250 pots, they're not 500s, they're all 3 250s. So keep that as it is, 250s. But we're going to go to Gibson's, okay? Gibson CTS pots that are much sturdier, much better. And the only problem is they're a little bit bigger in the diameter of the shafts than these pots are. And I'll have to open up that plastic pick guard just a little bit. And lastly, we're still missing that cover for this. And you can see this is aged a lot, and since 1969. Take a look at this, the color difference in that. Wow. I'll clean those up, but what we got to do is get a new one put on there before this other pickup gets beat to pieces, because that is an original pickup. So, thing to do, I'll switch this guitar around a bit so I can get to that cavity much easier. And I'll go ahead and I'll get the lighting on so you can see what I'm doing, get my soldering iron started up, and go from there. Alright, before I start taking these off, I'm going to prep the back of this potentiometer after I test it first. I'll test it on my voltmeter just to make sure I get 250 out of it. There's no problems with it. 253, perfect. Alright, so there we go. That one's going to go in first. It's right on the button. You can trust StewMac to have some good quality stuff. But one thing you always need to do, I mean always, the back of these are dirty. They have poly on them. They have resin from the bags that they're in. If they're on hang tags, when they shrink that poly around there, it gets on the part itself. So it's always best to go in here and score these things where you're going to have to solder them. So all I do is go up the back, take a nice sharp stylus type of file, and I cross hatch these things, okay? Put some scratches in them, it's not going to hurt anything. That way that solder can flow deep into this part and not on that shiny surface. And it's very important to do this, guys, otherwise you're going to be sitting there putting heat after heat trying to get that solder to flow and stick. Now the heat on these parts is not going to cause any problems because I'll end up throwing them away anyway or just giving them back to the owner. But I want to take them off and give them back because they are, you know, from 1969. Some of you might say, well, you know, we're the original parts. You know, I want the, you know, some of you are sticklers. You know, I mean, real sticklers. They'll say, you know, why couldn't you keep the original parts? Well, here they are. Okay? And if you want to put on old parts and have it sound bad, that's up to you. Because trust me, it would sound terrible to put these old parts on compared to these new ones. And in all generalities, these new Gibsons sound 100% better than these old all parts, these old Fender parts that are on here. You know, trust me, they just do. Alright, so what I gotta do is run a wire to my new one, and then I run a ground to it. I'm pretty much done with this one pot replacement. Alright, so I'm gonna put a big drop of solder on the wire itself, so that when I just touch it to the pot, it will adhere, it won't slide around any more than it has to. So I want to get it in the right direction. Okie doke. The trick is doing this when you have to have 3 hands to do it with. The main thing is just make sure you don't leave that wire for the soldering iron over the top of itself and drop hot solder on it. Create a short in your wire. Now this wire is already tinned, but it's not going to adhere to anything the way it is. We're going to put some solder on it. And so I'll heat this solder up just like this. Get this to stick, then go over the top of it with some other solder with my other hand. So now it's holding on to it. I'll let that cool a little bit so it doesn't fall back off again, but it's barely on there. Now I'll take the solder and pour more on it, make sure it's on there for good. So what I need to do is drop this on it and not touch it so it doesn't move anywhere. There we go, now I got a good contact. So I finally got some solder over the top of that wiring, and I'm not going to touch that for a while to make sure it cools, but the wire now is completely trapped inside the solder. It's a little bit off base, but that's why I leave the extra length to this so I can turn it to the other pot. Now this will hold the parts in place while I do the job, and I should have had that to begin with. I should have been using it. Not only to hold the parts in place, it gives me an extra hand to work with so I can do this job and not be concerned about extra wire. Alright, we're going to place this 473 little cheap one from Japan with an orange drop 473 out of the group I've got. Alright. And the little problem is it's a lot bigger than the original. If you look at this. And it's going to take up a little more space. Now the positive side of it is this is a much better capacitor than what's on here. Okay. Alright, the last and not least pot, I'm going to put it on here and test it to make sure that I've got a good pot. And that is 280, so that's not bad, okay? Well, that's the third pot right there. I'm about to ground it to the other three. And they'll need another wire running from its ground position over to the three-way switch to finish out the circuit, or the ground circuit. And like I said before, I've kept it splayed so the solder will flow much easier and here easier. Well, I'm done. I've trimmed off a big half of the wiring of this so it'll fit into that hole for the three-way. Because a single wire was going through it originally, and I want to get it in there and get it trapped. And I don't want too much wire causing it not to go into this little hole right here. So that's why I heat it up and get this inside as best I can, just like that. Now my task is to get these 4 ground wires off this potentiometer. Ooh, there went one. Just fell off. Okay. Make sure I got those in the right spots. That was just part of this little grouping here. So I've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ground wires to this, and this was just barely on there. Alright, so now I got all these 4 wrapped around one another, and I'll have to bring this pot over much closer because it's just not going to work otherwise. I can't really pull on these because there's just not a lot of slack left in them. And I'll need to score the side up a lot more so I can capture this little edge of that pot. Alright, so you see my answer to no more slack left on the line itself. I wrapped over another piece of wire, an extension wire, and I'm going to solder it to all 4 of these individuals to make it all one wire. Alright, just like this. That is very well connected now. Got all that copper covered. Now, one thing I really want to do to make sure it gets done is get my little deoxit liquid out and very generously, put it on this 3-way switch, 5-way switch. Alright, so now I got the 5-way set up, so I put the deoxit all over it, all the contacts. Let it drip through. Let it sit there for about 10-15 minutes while it soaks, and I'll flip it around and switch it around and see what kind of results I got with it. You get the pick guard installed back again, real close. But I'm going to let that deoxit sit there a little longer, okay, and drip down like that. Move this part around a bit because it's still kind of rough. By rough, I mean it feels like it's not been used much. And this guitar, to be a 1969, has not been played a hell of a lot, guys. I mean, it's like it's almost, it looks like a guitar has been used for about a couple of years and then put away and put up, okay? Okay, now, to get the pick guard back on, guys, I will be taking the strings off, get them out of the way. And I've left enough on, so I'll put them right back again, so that's not a problem. Okie dokie. Each of them has at least 3 winds because I knew I was going to be doing this on and off. You also have to put on a new tusk nut because this nut is just worn out, guys. You know, as old as it is, it's understandable. It's also helping the problem of this thing playing like there's a lot of fret buzz. Alrighty. So, first things first, get the strings off. Put the pick guard back on, check it, make sure everything's working properly. And I'm a little concerned about the jack on this. I need to open it up and check the jack wires before I totally button this thing down for good. Now I will do that once I get the strings off here, so hang in there. Okay, so we're back at it. Got the strings out of the way of this guitar, which I want out of the way. Get my phone out of the way as well. People keep calling me today about the setups. Yes, we're doing setups. Okay, so everything's been wired in properly. Everything's been set properly on this. All we gotta do next is to keep the wire from stumbling on itself, like that. And get these springs and the screws back on here. Make sure we capture these plates. Now I sure wish I had a plate to go on there, any kind of plate, to go over this rather than use it bare. I hate doing this. And I'm trying to think if I have an old plate around here somewhere. I'm gonna check it out and see if I got a black, gold, silver, something to go over that. Hold on. Well, I've got nothing to fit this whatsoever. No color, no nothing, no plastic, no metal, nothing. Damn it. So, I'm gonna put it back on the way you see it. Okay, so this is a 1969 Fender that his dad passed on to him, and he passed away. And I'm going to make sure it is in just as pristine a shape as I can make it. So I got his fretboard cleaned up. We'll knock that out of there. And it should just take a couple of taps because, you know, unless somebody replaced it before, which I doubt, it's like the original. And it should come out pretty readily. Alright. But to do that, we'll put this back into it. Okay guys, I got the 69 little Fender back out here. And it's hitting on all the parts. So all 5 tunings are working. One problem is getting this bridge to adjust, alright? I've got to get this bridge to come up, and it's just being stubborn. It's just fret buzzing like crazy still. So, alright guys, we're working with this 69 Fender again on System 1 bridge, which is a really pain in the butt-ski. Got a lot of fret buzz due to the fact this bridge is all the way down to the bottom. And it's all on the bridge itself is just way too low. Okay, so I got the guitar tuned up. Now I gotta check the level of this thing. Okay, so it's all back in tune again, and severely up. Let's check that relief on this thing finally and see what kind of action we can get out of this thing. That is still awful low, but I'll take it if it doesn't buzz on me. Alright, let's see. Alright, no buzz guys, no buzz cousin. No buzzing cousin. So, I've got the first 3 at 4/64ths, right? And the last at 3/64ths where they belong finally. Yay, you monster. Okay, well that's it guys. That guitar is ready to play. All set up, fixed up. Only thing to do next to it is to get that wax out and do a wax job on it. So hang in there while I do that. So hang in there guys, next time you see it, you'll hear it play. Hi guys, we just got through working on a historic guitar for the young man here. It's the 86 I've been talking about and so pleased to work on. It's the same model of the System 1 bridge that Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton all just clamored to get their hands on when it first came out because the roller bridge was so new and so attracted to their type of playing. Okay, what do you think about the setup? We put a new nut on there for him and adjusted everything. What do you think about the setup? Is it okay?
It's killer. I mean, it's better than I've ever experienced it being.
Cool, cool. Introduce yourself.
My name is Dylan. I live out in Venus. I play guitar in my church band. I used to play in a punk rock band,
Cool.
but not anymore. I'm a grown up now, I guess.
We never grow up, Dylan.
Never.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Which church did you play for so they can come watch it?
First Baptist Midlothian.
Oh, nice. Nice. I know that church. Okay. All right, so let's hear what your guitar sounds like. Let's hear some clean notes on it first, okay? Cool. All right, let's get crazy, guys. Let's go all the way to the nasty. Okay. What do you think? Is it good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Cool. Now we did do the frets. I erased them with a eraser and cleaned them up, get those micro little, licks out of them, so it's much smoother to pull those notes. And on your guitar, I actually waxed it, which I showed on video, because it deserves it. Okay. Now, one thing I was going to do, but not without your permission, was to color in that nick on the top horn and cover that with some clear aged poly urethane so that it wouldn't continue to nick. That's your decision. I know it's your dad's, and you want to keep it as original as possible, but it's something so that it won't continue to happen. Something to think about. Okay. Anyway, guys, any questions? Dave in Texas. Bye. Say bye, Dylan.
Bye.